Hello, welcome back to Garden Obsessed. My name is Carla. Hanging out here with Lola today in front of the fireplace. Jarrett has started working night shifts and I don't love it, so I'm gonna film a couple videos tonight to keep myself occupied. And Lola's good company too. Today I wanted to talk about, I recently watched a video by Hickorycroft Farms and they wanted people to share their top 3 homesteading books. And I thought that was an awesome idea and I definitely wanted to participate. So I'm gonna do that today. But I thought a little bit of background might be in order, just so that you know kind of the context in which I've chosen my 3 resources. So I live on a small cul-de-sac in a village, and it is on old farmland that was owned by my grandfather. He passed away in the 1950s when my father was a baby, and it wasn't farmed after that. So it was treed until this subdivision was built, and I live on 1 acre. Half of it is still treed. So there's a lot of older spruce trees that are reaching kind of the end of their life, and there are a lot of maples. Most of them are younger, and there are also some birch trees, and there's some fir and some red oak. We have plans to someday put a garage over on that other lot. I would like to have some kind of cold storage built into that building if someday we get that far. I would also like to, our heating source is electric. It's a heat pump, and it's a ducted heat pump system. And someday I would like to, the house isn't quite situated properly for solar, but when we build that garage someday, and this is like far off into the future, I would like to look into solar. I would like to have, currently I garden, and I was gonna lay right by the tripod. Currently I garden in our backyard in about, I think the total dimensions of the garden are about like 24 feet by 26 feet. And the raised bed space within that is about 350 square feet. This summer I also rented a community garden plot, which I plan to do again next year. I loved it, and it allowed us to grow a lot more food than normally we do. And those lots are in ground, and they were 16 feet by 33 feet roughly. I would like to have chickens one day. We don't currently have chickens. Our lifestyle doesn't really suit having more animals right now. It's hard enough to deal with Lola when we're on the road so much. So my stepchildren live an hour in one direction. I commute for work over an hour in the opposite direction. Jarrett's family all lives about 4 hours away in a neighboring province. So having animals and things, finding someone to take care of them isn't something I'm wanting to do right now. But someday the plan is to have chickens, just for eggs. I don't have a desire to raise my own meat, mostly because my work life, I just had my 17-year anniversary working in agriculture. So I get my fill of animals and moving fences and things like that in my professional life, and when I come home, I don't want to deal with those things. So that's kind of the history. So I think you will see that there's not very much in my book recommendations towards like livestock or animal husbandry or anything, but I do have a resource that I think is awesome that I will throw in at the end for those of you that do. And we use the principles of that book in my professional life. So I'm going to get started. The first book I have is Eating Wild in Eastern Canada. And obviously this book may not pertain to you if you do not live in Eastern Canada, but there are similar guides and things no matter where you live. You can also find people, especially lately, I feel like this is kind of like a growing trend and a growing movement. There are guides that give tours in your area, in parks and public places, that you can go on a tour and actually see these things physically in person, which I highly recommend. Why am I recommending this book? Not that I do that much wild eating. I would like to do more, although I would like a guide maybe to show me some of these things before I'm brave enough to try them myself. But knowing what you can and can't eat in your area can be a sustainable skill in an uncertain world. And I think it can help supplement maybe some things if you're having difficulty right now, or if you're looking to be more self-sufficient. I think this is kind of a good topic to explore. It can also have, like, I know it talks about something that I thought was only in Newfoundland, but apparently we have them in Nova Scotia as well, is cloudberries. And I've never had a cloudberry. A lot of these things are things that unless you're out there looking for them yourself, you're never gonna experience. And I think this is one of my top 3 picks. Now, my next pick may or may not pertain to you depending on where in the world you are, but I live in Nova Scotia, which is a Canadian Zone 5B-ish, inching ever closer to a Zone 6, which is about 1 zone higher than what it would be USDA. They don't line up exactly. The scales are not figured out the same way, but it's about a Zone 4 or 5 in the US. So one of the things that's important to me as a gardener, and kind of adding to my self-sufficiency and, you know, providing food for myself and my family, is season extension. We have a very short growing season relative to a lot of places. I think officially we have 119 frost-free days, although I think most years we're getting closer to the 130, 135 or higher range. And my favorite book is a local author, Nikki Jabor. She has several books, but this is the one I'm going to recommend, Growing Undercover. She talks a lot about timing of when to plant things, what types of covers and things you need to get the season extension, both in the spring so you can plant earlier, and also in the fall so you can grow and harvest later in the season as well. So she talks like row covers, cloches, cold frames. She has a polytunnel now, but you know, a lot of these techniques are very simple and easy to implement, and you do not need anything fancy or expensive in order to get some dramatic results. So I love this book. I highly urge you to look for local authors in your area. She's an hour away from me, so any of the techniques she talks about, I know I can implement at home. And I love this book. This is one of my favorite gardening books. The last one I'm going to talk about is this book, The Backyard Homestead. And I kind of love this book for a lot of reasons. I think it's kind of like first of all, it's an amalgamation of about 30 different authors from different resources all in one place. And it's got some plans in here. It's got the tagline on the front, produce all the food you need on just a quarter acre. So it's how to efficiently use the space that you have. About half of it is garden related, and about the other half is animal related. So they talk about poultry has its own chapter, and then all other meat has its own chapter. And you know, in the gardening section, it talks about everything from starting your own seeds. There's also like season extension information in here. It's kind of a catch-all beginner's guide, and I think this is a good option for someone who is in a similar situation to me. You don't have a farm, but you're interested in some of those topics and maybe implementing some of them in, you know, a less rural farmland situation. So the other book that I wanted to talk about is Lola, knocking my stuff around again. So the bonus resource that I wanted to talk about is called The Art and Science of Grazing by Sarah Flack. And if you have livestock and are managing pastures, I think you need this book. It has a lot of, it's essentially setting you up to be a grass farmer. If you have healthy, productive pastures, that translates into the health and productivity of your livestock. She talks a lot about pasture management systems and implementing like rotational grazing to improve the health and species diversity, species composition of your pasture. And I think it would be an interesting read for anyone that is practicing livestock husbandry on their farm. So those are the books that I am recommending for this open collaboration. I love seeing what other people read. I buy books a lot based on what other people recommend, and most of these have been bought you know, based on what other people recommend. And just because I love books and I can't stop talking about them, I have a couple to add to what Hickorycroft Farm recommended. They had a seed saving resource that might be difficult for people to find if they aren't in Canada, but one that is really good that I think is more widely available is this one. It is thicker, but you can go, like, they have a section on every type of seed. So don't be overwhelmed by it. Just go to, you know, if bean seeds is what you're looking to save, just go to the bean, just look up beans, and it will talk about just how to save bean seeds. It also has more information than that. Like, it breaks down growing. It has regional growing recommendations. Like, it's got Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, Gulf Coast, Upper Midwest, Southwest, Central West Coast, Maritime Northwest. Like, it's got it's got a really good breakdown. And I have very much enjoyed this book. And another one, I noticed that they recommended the Ball Blue book, which I have had a hard time finding. So maybe some of you have had a hard time finding it as well. I'm not entirely sure that that one is still in print. I could be wrong. But I got the Bernardin Complete Book of Home Preservation, or Home Preserving. It's the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving if you're in the US. They are identical. I think even the page numbers to the recipes are the same. But Bernardin and Ball, like Bernardin is the Canadian Ball version. So those are two more to add to their list in case you can't find the ones that they were talking about. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found the recommendations useful. And I would love to hear what you guys recommend. I thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. It's time for me to go play with Lola.